$4 billion a year in military hardware that we're giving Israel is now being used to commit a genocide. If we don't stop it now, we become complicit in their war crimes with our tax dollars, and they're about to receive another $14 billion from Congress. I have more Jewish friends than I do Arab friends, and I believe Hamas needs to be removed. But 16,600 innocent civilians, 6,600 children being slaughtered has to stop. Every shocking fact you're about to hear is 100% accurate and verifiable on mainstream media. Please Google it. I want you to be confident enough to act. First, Hamas was brought to absolute power and dominance over the Palestinians in Gaza by Israel itself, because the right-wing Israeli government in power did not want to be forced by the world to make peace with the Palestinians and give up their goal of taking more land. The current Israeli Prime Minister funneled $360 million in cash each year to Hamas to make sure the Palestinians were split into two factions so he could claim to the world that there was no one to negotiate peace with. Israel has been indiscriminately bombing residential apartment buildings, schools, and even hospitals, as President Biden, who has received more than $4.3 million in contributions from the American-Israeli lobby, was finally forced to admit due to the groundswell of pressure from the entire world, including our closest allies, over these atrocities. The Pentagon just warned that over 45% of the bombs being dropped on Gaza by Israel are inaccurate, dumb bombs. Israel could use the massive arsenal of precision-guided bombs if they were concerned about casualties in Gaza. According to international law, civilians are protected, and combatants must take all feasible precautions in determining whether a person is a civilian. Does indiscriminate bombing of thousands of entire apartment buildings sound like it's in compliance with international law? Over 60% of all the housing for the 2 million residents of Gaza have been destroyed. Over 18,000 Palestinians, including 6,600 children, 64 journalists, and 101 UN aid workers have been killed in Israel in order to kill just 5,000 Hamas fighters thus far. Can any reasonable person say killing 2 innocent people for every 1 enemy combatant is not collective punishment, a war crime under international law? On top of all of that, the United Nations is now warning that 50% of the surviving Palestinians from this onslaught are being starved to death as a weapon of war by Israel refusing to allow enough food, water, and medicine into Gaza to support the 1.9 million Gazans that have been displaced by this war. The response Israel gives to the atrocities being committed against the Palestinians is that if Hamas wants the destruction to stop, they could release the Israeli hostages, and that Hamas is hiding amongst the civilian population. Well, Israel spent billions to ensure Hamas became the absolute ruler of Gaza, making the Palestinian people completely powerless to force Hamas to release hostages or to prevent Hamas moving around as they pleased in Gaza. In fact, the only country in the United Nations Security Council vote against a ceasefire was the United States. I'm sure by now you're wondering how our elected officials are allowing our tax money to fund this genocide. The American-Israeli lobby, AIPAC, spent $13 million last year and over $8 million thus far this year lobbying Congress to support Israel's agenda. You are not powerless. I ask that you take 2 actions to help stop this genocide. First, send this video to everyone you can. Second, click on the links attached to send this message to your state senators and president, demanding A, that we stop all military aid to Israel, including the new request for $14 billion. B. Demand that Israel instate a humanitarian pause for as long as it takes for the United Nations to declare that enough humanitarian aid has entered Gaza to solve the immediate humanitarian crisis. C. Demand that once Israel resumes the war, they provide a clear and adequate safe area or areas and safe routes for the civilians to get there, where they will be protected until Hamas is eliminated. And no longer bomb from the air. Only fire when they can visually identify a combatant in accordance with international law, or when they are fired upon. D. Any future aid to Israel be tied to a change of the current radical right-wing government in control of Israel today, and be incrementally granted in accordance with actual implementation of a two-state peace plan.